Okay, we are live again. So welcome back, everyone. Now we have, after the break, a panel discussion on developing products that qualify for multiple markets. It's a very interesting topic. And you can see already on your screen, we have two panel members. First of all, Marjan Dzeparoski, who is Regulatory Affairs and Pharmacovigilance Manager, Bionika Pharmaceuticals in Macedonia. And also in the panel is Dinesh Kundu, co-founder and director, QBD Biosciences in India. And one of our other panelists, Lalit Baregama, who is General Manager, Global Business Development, Cadila Pharma, India, should be able to join shortly. So I've already introduced Marjan and Dinesh earlier in the day. So I'll very quickly read out the introduction for Lalit as well, and hoping that he'll join shortly. Lalit has worked with many reputed companies in India and abroad, India and outside India, like Ranbaxy, Hikal, Vimta, Wuxi, Eptech, etc., and currently associated with Cadila Pharmaceutical Limited as General Manager, International Business Development. He has contributed from proof of concept to discovery to commercialization of multiple drugs. He has 50 patents and 15 research articles to his credit. So great. Once again, welcome Marjan and Dinesh. And so let's start with the discussion. So one first topic from the list of questions for today's panel discussion is, how can we develop products that qualify for different markets? So I think we earlier also heard in Stephanie's presentation that sometimes it's very challenging to develop products and combine them together for different markets. I also have seen in my experience that there are multiple times when we are talking generics, the innovator has a different RLD for different geographies. I mean, when that's the situation, then perhaps it's sometimes very challenging to do that. But in general, otherwise, what is the best way? Maybe we start with you, Dinesh, on this.
Sure, Samir. Thanks a lot. So I think the way I feel about this is that it has become more like, say, if you follow 80%, then you should be able to target most of the markets. What I mean by that is, it's really not an option now to go from bottom of the, like, say, from the lowest regulated markets to the highest regulated markets. That option is almost over now. Maybe 10 years back,
I mean, like earlier people used to first go to so-called less regulated markets, and then used to go to regulated markets. Okay.
Absolutely. So that journey path which people think now that that's feasible, unfortunately that's becoming more and more difficult. If not difficult, it is extremely costly, and it is very challenging from regulatory perspective. So better approach is, if you identify your key markets, say whether it is 5 markets, 7 markets, 10 or 100 markets, if you identify those markets, then I am very confident that a regulatory pathway and a commercialization pathway is possible, which can cover at least 70 to 80% of them by taking care of your development and the phase 1. So I'm not focused on phase 3 at all, because the requirements change in different markets specifically on that. But if you cover your development with a US and EU innovator, specifically I mean biosimilarity, followed by a phase 1, if you do a 3-way, like a US and EU phase 1, then I think you'll end up covering most of the markets which you aim for. So that's a high level thing. I'll leave for Marjan to comment on that, or you to comment on that, and we can build on this.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, Marjan, you want to say something?
I don't know whether I should start.
Yeah, so maybe I come back to you with the regulatory question in a second. Okay. So I would just add to what Dinesh just mentioned. I think, and this was also one of the questions which was, or comments which was made in the chat box earlier today, that the commercial team or the portfolio team should decide early which are the markets of importance. I think it's Dinesh. I think please correct me if I'm wrong. Is it fair to say, and I get that feeling that we should completely forget about that we will have one development which we can do and register in all the countries globally, especially when we start with the sorry for using this word, less regulated markets going to higher regulated markets. So let me step back for a second and welcome Lalit to the panel discussion. Hi Lalit, we already just started with the first initial questions. So welcome.
So Samir, Marjan and Dinesh, good afternoon. Sorry, due to some technical, it was a little bit delayed from my side. I'm sorry for
Not
that.
a problem at all. Not a problem at all. So this happens, and so we are right now discussing about the how to develop products for multiple countries. So Dinesh, like I was saying, that I also feel that most probably, or basically, the best approach would be that the companies first decide which are the important markets for them, and those important markets should drive the development strategy. And then we should be able to add less important markets on those with the same product as far as possible. But the other side approach or the other direction approach should be avoided, like you were saying, Dinesh, earlier as well, because that would lead to multiple expenses and multiple issues. So perhaps, Lalit, you can add something on that if you want to.
Yeah, definitely. This is very important to identify first market, and that will play a very strategic kind of like decision, like what kind of market we are going to aid when we are selecting any molecule for development, and then accordingly we can also adopt a harmonization process, which is very common in the pharma industry now. Like if we want to go for any specific region like Europe or US market, and at the same time we want to add some other ROW market, then we have to harmonize the process during development itself, and it will help us to launch the product in other markets simultaneously. Either it is innovative or we are developing a generic. Accordingly, we can plan our strategy to develop and launch the product.
Yeah. One other approach perhaps could be that different geographies have different stability study criteria.
Yes.
Most probably that could be a topic to consider, because I have seen in past multiple companies first developing products for one geography. That means they did one particular zone with respect to stability study, and then they repeated it later. But if you club all the stability studies together, there is definitely a lot of time and resources which we save.
Yeah.
And those stability studies can be done simultaneously on the same batch, same set of samples, and then you also, so that could be another topic for sure.
So I want to add one more point. Harmonization process will include the gap analysis with respect to specific region or country, and in that we can include what Samir is saying. That is very important critical point when we are planning for the development for other markets.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is also, most probably there would be, and not only most probably, I'm certain there would be a difference between the type of dosage form. For example, there will be slight difference in injectables and orals because of the bioequivalence study angle, etc. But in general, we agree to that as early as possible, have a gap analysis, harmonization, and start with the more important markets, and then go in the other direction, right? So let me now jump to the regulatory topic for Marjan to comment. And one of the questions which most of the people asked and suggested for this panel discussion was, how should we tackle regulatory challenges of developing products that would qualify for multiple markets? So I guess the meaning here is that how should we manage regulatory approvals in multiple markets in the most efficient way, most probably?
I would say that first the company should decide in which markets would like to go. For example, for Europe, if they decide for Europe, they can have, as you know, with the EMA and with the procedures, they can obtain marketing authorization in all 27 countries if they want.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the company would like first to have the marketing authorization in USA together with Canada, or Canada will follow later, or maybe they focus first in the Euro-Asian countries. We know these Euro-Asian countries, this is Russia and also the neighboring countries, have also made like in new their own regulation and which documents they are needed, and they are more or less common for all these countries. So although harmonization was achieved through the ICH, the International Harmonization Committee, where they have put together, for example, US, Europe, Japan, still there are differences. Also, there are differences if we speak from the regulatory aspect, also in between European countries. So the company should know where they would like to go, and also this was also mentioned today. Also, as you have mentioned in the presentation, Stephanie, it's crucial also for the company that they have really good knowledge on the local legislation, because not all regulation obstacles or documents or requirements are mentioned for all countries. There is always something special which need to be done in some country. So it's really very helpful, and by this the company can be more successful if they can found a really reliable company which will help them locally. So, for example, concerning the regulatory issues, more and more now we have submissions through ECTD, but not all the whole world is still accepting ECTD, and also there are some differences between ECTD for Europe, ECTD for Canada, ECTD for USA, for China, for Russia. So there are differences, and the company should know this, and cannot. We can say that some documents are the same for all or for the more countries, but still you need to make specific CTD which will be applicable to that country or for more countries. So it's not easy job to do. For example, we have also, as I have mentioned, harmonization. There was initial initiative between US and EU that they now recognize, for example, audits, GMP audits, from if they have been done by the EMA or the FDA, and there are also such initiatives in more different aspects. So all this make the life easier for the companies, but still there are differences, and the company should know. And the best way is that the company know from the start in which region or for which region will they apply that product from, because as you have also mentioned, here we have stability issues on which temperature zones we should make the stability studies, about the form and everything. It's the best and it's how it's recommended to do from the early development, quality by design, concerning all aspects, also labeling. So this is the best way, because it's really not an easy job to make the product available, not for all, but for many countries.
Yeah, fair enough. Very well said. In the meanwhile, we have one question in the chat, and that is from Bahadir Chakmak. And what Baha is saying is that some scopes have different incremental development cost, and their business case might not make the NPV fly. What do the speakers think about it? Case by case evaluation, or like I mentioned earlier, one development for all scopes? So I think any comment from you, Dinesh, or from Lalit on this?
Sure, Samir. So what Bader is saying, that's a very relevant question. So I'll tackle it from a biotech perspective. So taking products to if you take product for one market and then you want to start development and clinical for other market, you already gone in terms of your NPV, or your profits and all, because doing additional studies in terms of clinical in biotech is simply not a viable strategy. So biotechnology, it works more for having the base ready and then incremental work which is needed for clinical that can be taken to add additional markets. That's why I said if you identify say 15 markets you want to enter, you won't be able to enter all those 15 markets with one strategy. You will still need to choose 7 or 8 markets out of those 15 markets which you can enter with one strategy. Then additional 5-6 markets, for example, if it is Turkey, if it is Russia, if it is Mexico, Brazil, South Africa, they have requirements for either characterization, biosimilarity, or additional clinical. So you'll need to tackle them case by case as a incremental development and clinical cost, rather than try to have everything painted again. That's simply not feasible. So this is what I recommend to the people we work with, that have your base strong in terms of very good analytical data and have a robust phase 1. Once you have these two, adding to a incremental phase 3 cost for market specific patients or a new trial in that market, it works better, because then you can find local partners that everything is ready. You can do small study which will satisfy your FDA. So that's my thought process in this.
Okay. Lalit, would you like to add something to that? You're on mute. Unmute here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I agree with Dinesh, and that is definitely we have to prepare a proper business case with respect to each market, and we have to see that how each market is giving the ROI on our investment. Either we have to add any additional parameters or study or clinical trials, because the markets for specific biosimilar or biological products, there are different aspects involved in when we make the commercial decision, because each market is having its own potential, and with respect to that, how we are incurring the development cost. So there should be always a return on investment kind of like strategy, which is very common in, again, I would say, in pharma when we are preparing the business case for a respective market. But as Dinesh has mentioned, I fully agree that these parameters should be included on step by step, as well as the respective country specific regulatory demand.
Okay, well said. So now maybe we have 10 more minutes, so I switch a little bit to some of the other areas. For example, one of the questions here is how should we create strategic alliances to develop products that qualify for multiple markets? I think some of the topics would be common, I guess, as we already discussed, but any additional comment on that? Yeah, Dinesh.
Sure. Again, dividing the fields between, say, biotech and generics. So biotech, it's not possible for one partner, even if it is, say, Pfizer or a Genentech or a Roche, for them to take care of end-to-end commercialization in all markets. Even those big, those behemoths, they have to get via strategic alliances for biotech products. Same is applicable for mid-level companies or smaller companies. So if you know your strengths well, you identify your markets, and some markets would be like your direct commercialization, where you feel you have the strength or you can build up. But other markets should be geared up for strategic alliances, because if we see last 100 deals which have happened in biotech, they have happened either for like a country specific company which is focusing on just, say, India or China or Europe, and they're looking for partners for US or other markets. So or they have happened between your developers who develop the product and then hand it over to the big guys, you manufacture and commercialize. Or they happen between say, like the big companies handing over everything to Wuxi, or say the big CROs, that you develop everything, give it to us, we just focus on commercialization. So the value chain of end-to-end commercialization globally is extremely difficult and very exhaustive for one company to take care. So having strategic alliances is very important. Identifying which markets you want to have strategic alliances is another critical part which we need to understand. Once we understand that, your development and clinical strategy can be geared as per that. Say if you want to enter Turkey as for strategic alliance, or you want to enter Brazil for strategic alliance, we need to make sure that we give development and clinical development a good enough initiative that this is lucrative for the strategic partner there. It's not a process. Once you're completed the development, then you start looking for your strategic alliances. You need to make sure that your strategic alliance strategy is built in your development strategy. Then only it is likely to be more successful.
Yeah, Lalit, would you like to add something to this?
Yeah, so like Dinesh mentioned, there are two types of alliances which we can very much clearly see here. One is alliances for the development, and one is alliances for the commercializations. So for the development, there are different platforms available. Either it is WuXi or any other kind of like platform, or our strategic partner for the development. And we have to see the things like what kind of like experience or exposure they have for the development. So that is a key and critical point. At the same time, there are some companies which are having a development platform as well as at the same time commercial platform for launching this product in respective market, and they have the presence in the market. So we can also select the partner who can develop and commercialize the product in respective market, and he can be our strategic alliance partner. For commercialization, for just finding the partner for the commercialization, like markets like China, India, and Europe market, we have to find out a partner who is having a good reputation in respective segment. I would say, especially we are talking about the biological products. That company should have a good exposure and experience for this segment, and they should have a clear kind of like strategic vision for a respective country or market in this specific segment. So that will help us to launch the product in respective market with respect to our alliance partner vision. At the same time, it will help us to get a very good successful launch in respective market.
Yeah, and I think if I may add to this is that also now that most of the companies have multiple products for development, and there are multiple technologies involved as well, it's almost impossible to have everything in-house. and with the project prioritization and many times having this target of achieving launches on some particular target dates based on patent situation, etc., it also makes sense to divide the portfolio into some of those working through alliances and some others doing in-house. So what I call usually take those make or buy decisions so that we have the most efficient way of bringing the products to the market, right? So in the meanwhile, we have one more comment question from Michael, or rather Michelle Urban in the chat. So at the beginning of the project, the business case is always prepared top down, but is primarily focused with any issues in projects. But do you have you faced any issues in your projects that local support functions, for example, regulatory or medical, do not want to contribute to in the feasibility phase of the project? And until the business case is endorsed also locally at the country level. So I think the question here is that do you see a lot of challenges during the business case preparation phase, especially in the areas of regulatory, medical, and other functions, whose input is very, very important to have a robust business case?
So, Samir, I'll start my input on this. So basically, business case traditionally, specifically for small companies, what we see is it is driven by your business development or the commercial part. So inputs after the commercialization input is done, they identify the molecules and the business case for that. Then it is taken down to other levels and other things. So I think that approach is what causes a lot of problem, because once then they are forced that start the development of the project, because it's a multi-billion-dollar project. You start it without identifying and understanding the complications related to either medical or regulatory. So this I have seen projects being shelved just after initial development, when the regulatory and the development challenges started showing up. So Michael, I would say that this the approach which is taken, that a unilateral decision about, say, taking a portfolio ahead and then the development, regulatory and clinical team just supporting it, that's not the right approach in my opinion. Where we see the most success is with the business cases endorsed by all the teams, specifically regulatory, development and clinical team, followed by vetting of the commercial. So this is the way I would like to build a business case. To your question, I've seen failures where just at cell end stage, say 2 out of 5 projects have been shelved.
Okay, so Lalit, you would like to add anything to this?
I agree with Dinesh, and it is absolutely important that when we are making the business case, all the stakeholders are equally responsible to make the success of the product and development and timely delivery of the products in the market. So regulatory and all other stakeholders are equally important, and they must be aligned with the business case prepared by the commercial team.
Okay, great. So Marjan, would you like to add something from regulatory perspective to this discussion?
I would like to say that it's different. It is very important, as I have told before, to have a reliable regulatory local partner. We have in some countries better, for example, a regulatory person which they know the regulation and they're keen of doing it, and in some either they don't want to do that, or they don't know, or they don't have connections with the agencies. So it's different, yeah, and it's very important for success. Yeah.
Okay, thank you then to all three of you, Marjan, Dinesh and Lalit, for very insightful discussion. I think we covered these topics at very high level, but the key takeaway is, I think, better planning and early planning and putting all the key stakeholders together for the success of developing products for multiple markets. The other key takeaway is, I think this expectation that the same development will work everywhere, A to Z, in hundreds of markets is a non-starter. So it is very important to identify the important markets first and then start the development accordingly, of course, after taking into consideration each key stakeholders, regulatory, medical, etc. Inputs. So thank you, everyone. And we go in the offline mode now, and then we rejoin in a minute for the next session, which is another panel discussion. Thanks again, all three of you.
Thanks a lot, Samir, Lalit, Marjan. Thanks
Thank you,
a lot.
Samir. Thank